Greetings. I am here. I have a new setup here, so I am checking out to make sure that the microphone is on now and everything. So I think everything is well. Okay, so I am going to talk about the ELCA on and off all through the year. The ELCA is the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. It is the largest Lutheran denomination in America. I wrote a little blurb on it for my article for January. I can never remember numbers, so I'm having to look down at my sheet of paper. As of December 2018, there were almost 3.4 million baptized members in 65 synods in the U.S. It includes 9,091 congregations. So there are 9,091 ELCA congregations in the United States, 17,000 plus leaders. That means on the ELCA roster, that's clergy and deacons. Word and Sacrament, Word and Service is a new roster. Let's see. And 32% of clergy on the ELC roster are women. Since the 1990s, over 50% of seminary students, seminary is a college, college for training pastors. It's a master's level college. And since the 1990s, since I went, the population in seminaries was over 50% women in seminaries, but let's see, where did I say? 32% of clergy serving are female. Let's see. And there were a couple of reasons I wanted to talk about the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, and that is a lot of parishioners who haven't been active in a congregation just assume that we're kind of a standalone congregation, that, Zion Lutheran Church has called a pastor and it's not really connected to other Lutheran congregations, when we really are. We are connected to those other 9,000 congregations around the country. And we really, as a congregation, wouldn't be what we are and wouldn't exist as we are without being a part of the ELCA. And I'm going to talk about that over the course of, like I said, the year. Another reason to discuss this is sometimes when budgets come to be voted on by a congregation, people wonder, well, why are we giving to the New Jersey Synod? What are they doing for us? Is usually the question that people ask. And the main way that the New Jersey Synod, which is, again, it's a national church, the ELCA, and we're a church in three expressions: congregation, obviously Zion Lutheran Church is one of those 9,000 congregations. Synod, that is a Greek term meaning walking together, kind of synovial, it's together, walking together. And the wider church, the ELCA, so there's a bishop, a presiding bishop of the whole church. There's a bishop of each of the 65 synods, and pastors in a congregation. And pastors are trained by seminaries that are funded by the ELCA and synods, and with some outside funding as well, but mostly that, and endowment funds and so forth. But the whole church is involved in seminaries and oversight of seminaries through boards and funding and everything. So a congregation wouldn't have a pastor. Zion wouldn't have me as a pastor without being part of the ELCA. And there's a whole process where people are vetted through not only the call process that happens on a congregational level, but also a candidacy process that happens even before people enter seminary. Anybody can take a seminary class or so, but if you're enrolled in the seminary to be an ordained minister of Word and Sacrament or Word and Service, you need to be a candidate for that, and that's overseen by the seminary and the synod and the ELCA. So there are people all the way through, so there's testing, there are applications to fill out, because religion attracts people, a number of people from myriad walks of life, which is a wonderful thing, myriad backgrounds, but it can also attract people who are maybe zealous or religiously zealous, or who don't have really the gifts to be a pastor. And so the national church and the synod make sure, to the best of their ability, that people have gifts and have a good kind of psychological profile, and have background in order to be a pastor or a deacon or a chaplain. And there are psychological testing that takes place. A call to ministry, the ELCA understands, is external and internal. And internally is the person's sense that, oh, I want to serve. I feel like God is calling me to this role, to be a pastor of a congregation, to be a chaplain to a prison. So that's the internal call. But then there's the external call, and that's where people from the outside of the person get to see if the gifts are helpful to be a pastor. So somebody who has maybe a trigger temper, or who reacts, violently, or who molests children, and that people who have backgrounds with that aren't necessarily, they're called to be Christians, but Christ calls everybody. He doesn't do background checks, but the church does. So what has the synod or the ELCA done for us lately? Well, they made sure that you had a qualified pastor and put through a process where that could happen. A pastor who was trained, who was tested, who was interviewed years and years ago, and also by this congregation. Lutherans tend to like order. We like order. We're kind of like Hercule Poirot, who likes order and method. So that was a very bad French accent, I think. So what I'd like to do is to, and I think I figured out how to do this, to play a little video to share with you, a little video by the ELCA. See if I can do this with sharing my screen. We pause that, we turn up let's see. And now, oops, I have to pause that. Thank you for bearing with me here. And now I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to update audio system. Oh, no, do not install that later. I'm going to unmute that. And maybe you will be able to see, maybe you will be able to hear and maybe not. Maybe I haven't figured that out. So we'll see.
in regular offerings at their congregations. Of this total, the churchwide organization received $47.1 million, or just under 3% of those total offerings. The churchwide portion of your mission support offering is the grow the church, sharing the love of Christ with more people in more places than ever before. Together, we are supporting almost 400 new congregations in the United States and Caribbean. Each year, we help over 100 existing congregations reinvigorate their ministries and enhance outreach in their ever-changing neighborhoods. And we're working together to foster networking for our ethnic and multicultural communities that all may share a place at the table. We wouldn't be a church without our leaders, and we realize that an investment in the future of this church begins with our future leaders. Starting with children and youth, we offer events, resources, and tools to nurture faith. Your mission support dollars support the work of 8 ELCA seminaries and 26 colleges and universities. By bringing our leaders and ideas together, our church continues its long-standing leadership in interfaith and ecumenical dialogue, so we replace fear and misunderstanding with a deeper appreciation of our common ground. We're a publicly engaged church, promoting policy change and action at every level of government, countering the forces of inequality. And together, we support social ministry organizations such as Lutheran Social Services in America, which impacts the lives of 1 in 50 Americans. Our impact goes beyond the United States. As a member of the Lutheran World Federation, we're in communion with 145 member churches and directly connected to 85 companion churches in other countries. A significant portion of your offering accompanies our global companions to build new churches, equip leaders, and provide for the needs of the community. In support of this work, your offering helps send over 230 ELCA missionaries around the world, including more than 85 young adults in global mission. These missionaries are the hands and feet of Jesus around the world, serving, learning, and returning home with a valuable perspective on church and society. There's no better place to help do God's work in the world than by supporting the tremendous and creative ministry going on across our own church. By working together, we make a greater impact. Thank you for your mission support offerings and for your gifts of time and talent. We are a church that is making a difference in the world, together.
Okay, so I'm not sure if you could hear that. I will make sure to put a link to that video, which had statistics that were a little bit older than the ones that I quoted at the beginning of the adult forum. I'll make sure to put a link to that below. So we are a church in 3 expressions. We're in this together. We as a congregation are not alone. And the ELCA, the presiding bishop, isn't doing work alone. She needs Zion in order to do mission work, to serve food to those who need it through LVCAP here in Long Valley, to support people experiencing disasters around the world. She and the national church, all of the staff who work in Chicago, aren't able to, administratively be the church. We are the church kind of grassroots and on the ground. So we need each other in order to have such deep and broad impact, in our world. Lutherans, via the ELCA disaster relief, do a lot of work based in current organizations that are on the ground. We don't create when a disaster happens, we don't create a new network. We just use the network that's already on the ground. and we are known to be there for a long time afterwards. So a lot of other organizations come quickly, pour a lot of money in right away, which is so needed, but then leave quickly. So we Lutherans come in and stay for a while using the organizations that are already there on the ground, and then kind of broadening them going forward. So we are church together with 9,000 other congregations with, see, I even forgot the number of million, as of December 2018, 3.4 million other Lutherans around this country, and in connection then around the world. Lutherans really do like relationship and are one of the main denominations that really intentionally reach out to other denominations in order to build relationships, Christian denominations and also other religions. And we have done this going back to the 1950s with Roman Catholics, and there we have all sorts of agreements among Christian denominations and conversations with other religions as well. So there's a lot that we do together. We aren't in this alone. So two things that the Synod concretely has done for Zion. Not that we should look at it that way. We don't kind of look at relationships in terms of quid pro quo. You do this for me, I'll do that for you. But just in concrete terms, you have me as a pastor. Whether you think that's a blessing or a curse, that's up to you. Or sometimes somewhat in between, that's probably more realistic. You have me as a pastor, and we have a new video system that we're still tweaking and working with and understanding to have video streaming for worship and other things going forward. That really was a COVID grant given by the New Jersey Synod to our congregation, and will be, it was a loan, it's called a loan, but it gets forgiven over the course of 4 years as we use it, and we plan to use it. Even after COVID ends, we plan to still stream our worship services, because not everybody can come to church, not everybody should come to church, particularly during flu season and so forth. So those are two concrete things where the wider church has had a very real impact on Zion, very visible impact. And we have had a visible impact in terms of supporting Lutheran disaster response, supporting LVCAP. That's not necessarily through the Lutheran Church, but we also have, I also serve on the New Jersey Synod. This will be, I think, my last year. It got extended a year because of COVID, and we couldn't have a Synod assembly last year. So I serve on the Synod Council and am involved in conversation and bringing concerns from this part of New Jersey, and concerns and questions for us to all discuss as a synod. So there are ways that we are in relationship very deeply that you don't really know about until you are told through an adult forum that's virtually streamed or video recorded, I should say. So I think that's where we'll start. We are a church in 3 expressions. We are a church that does a lot of things quickly because we are in 3 expressions: congregations, oversight of the Synod, and the ELCA. I do want to say one last thing. The highest authority in a congregation, some people might think, well, the pastor's the highest authority, and we know that we are not. The annual meeting, the congregation meeting that meets once a year, is the highest authority in a congregation, just like The Synod Assembly is the highest authority in the Synod, and the churchwide assembly is the highest authority in the whole ELCA. The Congregation Council at Zion gets to make decisions in between, on behalf of the congregation, in between congregation meetings. And as does the Synod Council in between Synod assemblies, as does the Church Council in between churchwide assemblies, which happen every, I think it's 3 years now. So just to note, we're a church in 3 expressions. The highest expression of authority where we meet is when we meet in body, in a massive body as a congregation or as a synod or as the church, where we discern, where the Holy Spirit is at work and we try to discern what God is calling us to do as a congregation, as a synod, and as a church. We need each other. We wouldn't be the same entity without each other. We're a church in 3 expressions. Thanks be to God.